started with our 8 o'clock. We're right on time. Let's see, Jesse, I believe you're our first, I should know the agenda by heart, but I don't. So Jesse, you're our first presenter.
Well, that's okay. Thank you, Kathy. So we'll get started here. And there is your agenda, and we're at the 8 o'clock to 8:45 time frame. And so what I'm going to do is share a few things on the screen. Not that one. Okay, can everybody see the Rotary Opportunities here?
Yes.
Okay, so Rotary Opportunities, we all have our club activities, we have our fundraisers, our golf tournaments, wine dinners, pancake breakfast and the like. We all have our various service projects to feed people, to educate people, to clothe people. But there is world beyond the scope of our own clubs. And that's kind of, in a bigger sense, how I view this module. This is about Rotary Opportunities outside, largely looking at beyond our club. I'm not going to read this because I think that's kind of simply what we're investigating. Particularly, what are these programs of Rotary and what might we do with them, how they might help us. So if you look at it right here, it says page 5 is where the discussion is. So I'm going to skip to that. This is a key page because it talks about the programs of Rotary that are the topic of this session. And the way I'm planning to pursue this session is to have a lot of interaction, because I think to a large extent we have people in this group that have probably participated in all of these. So I'm going to skip global networking groups. We'll get back to that. I want to talk about Indirect. So I also have some slides here. And what I'm looking for is we're just going to have a discussion and sharing time, because like I say, a lot of you have already done that. So first of all, maybe, let's see, I'm going to get a participant list and a bigger screen here for me. So how many of you have an Indirect club? Maybe raise your hand, wave your hand. Okay. Arturo, do you want to tell us about your Indirect club?
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much, Jesse. We have an Interact. They have about 70 members and is with one of the high schools here in El Paso, which is called Lydia Patterson. And has been, I think it was originally, it began about 7 years ago. And we have a great advisor, and she recruits the students, and it's a very active club, as well as a Rotarac. So we're very excited to have that club.
So what would be their key projects? What do they do?
They do a lot of community service projects, taking food to homeless. They also do a little bit of fundraising activity so that they can get resources for that. They also do some projects in Juarez, and they are very active. Okay,
so basically he's talking about a club. It's typically a high school group. It's sponsored by Rotary Club, and they have their own structure, their own set of officers, and they have their own projects, like Arturo was talking about. Let's see, how are Rotarians involved? Does anybody else have an Interact club and want to share how you, Dan, how do your Rotarians interact with the club? Dan, you're muted. Dan, you're muted. I'm gonna.
We have a club that started this last year.
I told them they had to have 25 kids before we'd consider it. They started with 53. Within 3 weeks, they had met with the village, they had met with the high school administration, they had met with Carrie Tingley. They had set up to do the Christmas cards for the Carrie Tingley kids. They had gotten Santa Claus for Carrie Tingley. They worked with the village and have gotten the okay to, and have started cleaning the roads to the high school. They got with the high school administration and started a recycling program at the high school, and they involved the special education classes to help make and decorate the boxes and help keep them up and that kind of thing. So anything to working to make the school a community. Then in our club, they showed up at our big fundraiser, which is Pancake Breakfast. They ended up being our serving line. Everyone would a lot better talk to those kids than look at a bunch of old Rotarians. And they've just been a wonderful group of kids and sponsors. We have three, two of the teachers who are the real spark plugs, and the counselor who makes sure that all the kids have all the RILA information and that kind of thing. So it's been a real good thing for our club.
It is a great thing. My club has done many of them over the years. Just a few comments. Maybe a first question, Sunny, do you know how many Indirect clubs we have in the district now?
We do not know, Jesse. We're working on that. You know, our RI's website's been down for a while, and that's hampered our investigation. But we're going to find out. I'll let you know.
Okay. I know it's typically in terms of dozens of clubs, and I do want to talk to everyone here. All your clubs can start an Indirect club. It is one of these standard programs of Rotary. It is for high school kids. You need
And
a sponsor, someone from the club to work with them, and someone at the school to be a contact. Any comments from those of you that have done one on what are the challenges of an Indirect club?
You can start one at middle school also.
Oh, you can, okay.
Yes.
What are comments on challenges? I think this is
The challenges are, one, finding a sponsor. Two,
right?
Two, and probably the big one is getting the high school administration to listen.
And I would echo what Dan said.
I'm a school administrator, okay? So it's, you know, get them to get help that my partner in the club was the former superintendent of the school district, and I was a former assistant superintendent. So, you know, we finally got the principal to listen to us, and he got a teacher who came and said she wanted a community service club. And that got us going. We put the two together and it worked. But the schools are overwhelmed.
Yeah,
and
I would echo what Dan said there. It's really key to get the right person that's truly dedicated at the school. It's real hard to keep it going if you don't have that. So this is one of the structured programs. If there is a standard structure of how to do this. Let's jump to the next slide. Rotary up here. The age range is different. The age is 18 to 30. Does anybody here sponsor a Rotary club?
Jesse?
Yes.
Two quick things. One is that's actually an outdated slide now because there is no upper age limit on Rotaract anymore.
Oh, okay. Good to
And
know
we
that.
have our district Rotaract representative on this call.
That's right.
We do.
We might want to hear from Louisa.
Okay. Louisa.
Hello.
Okay. I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. So how does Rotaract differ? Tell us about Rotaract.
Well, Rotaract, I didn't have the opportunity to be in Indirect, sadly. But what I have to say about Rotaract is that it has a lot of potential because it's the moment in which we are, like in between being students and jumping to the real world and jumping to being all grown-ups and professionals and all that. So it's very nice because we all seek for, besides doing like community service, we seek for opportunities. We seek for networking with all of you Rotarians, because we want mentorship. We want to know about the real world out there. So it's interesting how the university-based club works, because we have a lot of support from the university. Sometimes it's hard to do everything that we want to do because they have like their restrictions, like the university restrictions. I would say that's like a challenge, but I would say we also see like the great side of that, which is we have like the support of the school. We have we can use like the university to have some fundraisers, some events. So and the people, the Rotaractors are motivated and they're like old enough to know what they have to do. So I would say another challenge is that sometimes they limit themselves to just do it, like be part of the club when they're students, when they're active at school. So like during summer, it's a little bit harder to have them active because, they're like, oh, we're in summer, we don't actually go to school, so no Rotaract. I think that's just a challenge, but it's not something that, the club. It's actually very nice to be part of the university.
It is. And actually, we've worked with Indirect and Rotaract clubs here. Our club has, and we have our 4th of July parade in the summer, and
Oh, yeah.
they've come out to help us in those events. So again, another structured program of Rotary. It's got a whole definition of how they work, how they need to work, and you can connect with Luisa.
Jesse, if I may share
Yes.
something, Luisa and the Rotaract, they have a blood drive today. So, they're very active as well, and we're very excited, of everything they're doing with the community. So congratulations, Luisa, on all the hard work y'all are doing.
Thank you so much.
Very
Can I find out who else on this call has a Rotaract club? Camino Real, yes. Others?
I'm from Rotaract. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Good morning, Jessica.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm a little late because I have technical issues with my computer.
I understand. Good to have you.
Jessica's also from the Utah Rotaract Club.
Yes, and also I wanna add something. I was from Interact when I was in Mexico, and I want to answer the question that how is different Interact from Rotaract. In my experience, Interact in Mexico was a community service in a clinic. So we have like volunteership, helping doctors and translator. And for Rotaract in a university, it's different because you have more networking with the students, and you have more community service for the students, for the organization, and all activities relate to the campus. And you have, how I say, more connections from recruiters. So I think it's more related to basically with your major that you study for than the high school.
Okay, well, thank you, Jessica. So I'm going to keep moving, but if your club does not sponsor either Rotaract or Interact, consider it. It's very rewarding experience. I'm going to go to the next one, which let me get to my other slide here. Rotary Community Corps. Now, it's curious when I've taught this before, even the experienced Rotarians in our district don't know a whole lot about this. And I've researched it online, and I'm just going to give you a synopsis because we don't really do this in our district. What these are non-Rotarians who get together, form an organization, and do projects within their community. If you go on the Rotary website, you'll find information about this, and they have a survey results. There's 10,000 of these worldwide, but only 3% are in North America and Europe. So it's really more an international activity. And these are volunteers working on a cause, some public project, health or infrastructure or whatever. But a common theme appears to be that these are made up of people that either don't want to join Rotary or can't because they're not qualified to or don't have time, but they are organizations. And if you go on the Rotary website, you'll see there is a standard bylaw and constitution structure for these organizations. So I would only invite you to go look at it if you're interested. But like I said, as best I can tell, it's not significant in the US. Sonny or Dan, those of you district governors, do you have any additional comments?
I don't, Jesse. I've not actually ever encountered this organization except by
Yeah.
reference.
Okay. Dan, you're muted.
I know it's much more accepted and useful really in third world because there are a lot of people with good hearts, but they don't have the means of that we ordinarily associate with Rotary.
And that's a good distinction. They don't have the means. But it is.
It doesn't stop them from being absolute great, having great effect on their communities.
Yes. So you may come across this sometime. It is, again, one of the structured programs of Rotary. Going to click on. I wanted to, this is a slide, sorry. I show at almost every training that I give, and this is my separate techie kind of comment for you. Has anybody over here tried to search the Rotary website?
Not successfully, Jesse.
Not successfully. So my little slide set here, it's just guiding the conversation, but this one slide is the thing I think I'd suggest you write down. If you want to search the Rotary website or any website effectively, use this in your Google search. Do a Google search, write the word site, colon, the website, and then whatever you're searching on. So like in this example, site colon, Rotary.org, community core. What this does is it finds all the information with those words on Rotary, and it only gives you results on the Rotary website. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it can be a very effective way of searching Rotary. Okay, let's keep going to our structured programs. Friendship exchange. A friendship exchange is where a group of Rotarians, typically 8 to 15, take a trip, and it's really a social event to another country. And you're hosted in the homes of Rotarians, typically 3 nights or so at each one, and they will have a variety of activities. So businesses they may show off, scenic sites, parties that they have with you. You may go to some Rotary weekly meetings. So it's a social exchange, cultural exchange. So Who all here has been on one or has hosted one? Sunny, tell us about it.
Well, we hosted in Silver City the group from South Africa, and also a friendship exchange from the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember now. Was it Oregon or Washington? Does anyone know? They very fun to be with Rotarians from other countries and other parts of the world and share what we're doing in our clubs and share our communities with them.
Very good. So you hosted.
Yeah, I've never been outbound, but I look
What?
forward to that.
So how many people in your club were involved in hosting?
There were 4 different homes hosting people. We had 3 in ours, and there were several others. The group was about 8 in all, I think. You know, some
Okay.
people can only put 1 person up, and there's usually a single traveler in the group, so it works out well. And then several other people who couldn't be hosts were involved in transportation or providing food, and the whole club gathered for a potluck with everyone, and they did a presentation to our club about their community and their Rotary clubs. It was
That's great. So there's a lot of ways you can get involved.
Oh, yeah.
Who's been on an outbound exchange? I'll call on Ann. I know she's been on one. Unmute yourself. You've got to unmute. There you
Okay.
go.
I was trying to use the space bar unsuccessfully. We went on 2 outbound exchanges, one to British Columbia, and it's actually started in Washington State around the Spokane area. And that was wonderful. We got to travel through Banff National Forest, and it was just beautiful. And I think it was a small group. If I remember right, there were 7 of us. And then we went to Sweden, and there were, I think, 9 of us. And we made some long-lasting friendships from New Mexico clubs in doing that. And we had great time. Everywhere you go, Rotarians open their home and are so gracious with their time and just showing off their community. You know, everybody's proud of their community. You get wined and dined and toured, and so it's a really fun time, memorable.
It is great. Anybody else has anything they want to share about their experience? If not, I would comment too. I talked to Donna Padachi yesterday to ask what's the status of this in our district. And pretty much because of COVID, everything came to a halt. And she said, everybody's still interested. Other countries are still interested, but we're going to have to wait probably certainly beyond the restrictions that we have on us, but also we need to get to where people are comfortable staying in somebody's home in a strange country. So she's hoping maybe late next year we'll get back to doing this. So I'm going to put in my 30-second ad for something else Rotary. Do you know how you find out more about Friendship Exchange or any of these programs? My point is go to the district website, and I can't seem to. Here we go. My apologies here. Well, I was going to navigate the district website and having technical difficulties. But if you go to rotary5520.org, look in the left side, look for district organizational chart, and that's where you will find a list of everybody at the district that could help you. So if you want to find out about friendship exchange, youth exchange, any of these items, that's where you'll find it. So we'll keep going here. We've got, we talked about friendship exchange, youth exchange. Youth exchange. Youth exchange is basically a whole structure managed by our district where someone from another, students from another country come stay with you. In our district, it's typically for a whole year. They stay typically with 3 families. And it's a great chance to connect with people from other countries and to help the youth from another country. Who all here has been involved in one? Okay, quite a few. Does anybody like to share something about it?
Jesse, this is Moni. I would like to share that we had an amazing exchange student this year. And she was so excited about Rotary. She loved to come to our meetings. And whenever we had a service project, she was always willing to help. A lot of times I picked her up from school to take her to the meetings. And she was just the most delightful young lady. Unfortunately, her exchange year was cut short due to COVID. And I might just add that El Paso has kind of a unique challenge with the exchange student program. We had a really difficult time to find the second family that could give her a home here. And a lot has to do with living on the border and the families that wanted to participate and give the exchange student a home often went to Mexico. And of course, the exchange student couldn't go with a family. So that was a unique challenge for us.
Yeah. Also, rules on behavior. I'll comment on a couple of things. They're limited on, let's see, their ability to drive. They certainly can't get involved with drugs or alcohol. Anybody have any comments or want to talk about that? Luisa?
Yes, I was an exchange student. I went to Taiwan, and I would say I still think it's the most enriching experience I've ever had. Traveling to another country, and I mean, Taiwan is a very different country based on culture, language, geography, everything was so different. But I grew so much. I think this is one of the most amazing programs Rotary has. I got to expand my connections last summer. Well, I have like friends all over the world. I haven't been able to travel to their countries, but they've come to visit me. I have friends from Norway, Brazil, France, Germany, all over, and it's great. So I encourage every single Rotarian to help in this, participate in this, because it's great. It's a great opportunity for the youth, and I think it also helps. It could help the Rotarians to expand their membership. If the interactors want to be part of a youth exchange, that's a way to get their parents involved, and they can become like Rotarians. But I totally encourage this program. It's great. I think I'm gonna have this in my heart the rest of my life. And well, it's amazing because it helped me learn a new language, which is Mandarin, and that's a very hard language. And I'm just gonna, I'm gonna have this for the rest of my life.
Well, Louisa, that's great. Everybody I know always is excited. Is anyone familiar with our district conference and what happens? The
Yeah.
talent show. Every year we have a talent show. Sunny, what do you think? Let's say, I guess we don't have any students right now, right? This coming
Right,
year.
right. I was going to mention that around the world, we're suggested not to have youth exchange until it is safe. We don't want to send a young person abroad when there's no vaccine and not a reliable treatment. However, we are working on virtual cultural exchange experiences where we can include a language component, a fellowship component, a cultural exchange component. And we are now in the process. We have a great committee, by the way. This district has a fantastic youth exchange committee currently looking for applicants for next year, because the thinking is that by next August, when people would begin trading places, we may be in a position to do that. So if your club's interested in participating at all, please get in touch with someone from the Youth Exchange Committee or with me.
Very good, thank you, Sunny. I guess the point I would emphasize on youth exchange is we're very intent on protection. Sunny, we still have, I assume, a committee and a chair for youth protection, right?
Yes, we do. Dick Jones is our youth protection officer, and Michelle Frechette, who chairs the Youth Exchange Committee, is the assistant youth protection officer. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned is that youth exchange is one of Rotary's key assets in the campaign to generate world peace. Youth exchange students are ambassadors, and with every student, we forge bonds that are indelible.
Very good. So I'm going to keep going down our list here. We've got youth exchange. Ryla, get back to our slides and talk about Ryla. How are we doing on time? We're getting a little short. That was youth exchange. Ryla. Ryla stands for Rotary Youth Leadership Award. It's a leadership training camp for students between junior and senior years. I'll go ahead and just cover the basics and ask for people's comments. But we hold it a 1 week girls camp in the summer, a 1 week boys camp in the summer. It's at Manzano Mountain Retreat to the southeast of Albuquerque. It is coordinated by the district, but there are costs involved. So we look to clubs to sponsor the students. Sunny, do you know what our latest charge is for Ryla?
700.
It's 700. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, 700.
So typically the clubs raise the money and decide how many students they will sponsor, and they interview and propose students, and those that are accepted go. And typically we have about 70 to 80 boys and about 110 girls. And if you go and be a counselor, you get one of these nice shirts. You might get a nice Ryla hat. Has anybody else participated in Ryla? Anybody have anything to share about Ryla? Yes, Peg.
It's a really great experience, and if you can take the week off to be a counselor, it is so much fun to spend a week with these young people, and it renews your faith in the future.
Yes, it does.
Well put, well
Peg,
put.
when your students come back, do you have them talk at your club?
Oh, yeah.
I think
And it's actually,
Go ahead.
many of the students, when you talk to them later, and some of these students have also gone to boys state and girls state and band camp and sports camps and whatever, but they often say that Ryla was one of the best.
Mhm.
And what kind of students are we talking about? Does anybody know or comment on that?
What
I'm
kind,
sorry, what kind of what?
What kind of students? Who are we targeting?
the students are generally just going into their senior year. And they are people who have good academic records and a commitment to expanding their leadership potential.
Right. That's the key I was thinking of. We're not targeting problem kids. We're targeting kids that have already shown they excel and are leaders, and we're trying to help them be better.
One of the things that we
But I
found-
want to speak about something, Jesse.
Sure, Dan.
The strength of RILA, I think, is it's the only youth leadership program I know of where followership is emphasized as well as leadership. Situational leadership is what's taught. You know, sometimes you need to step back and let someone else do it.
Yes. Yes. And
Thank you.
kids at that age are just trying to feel, well, how am I going to be a leader? How
Yes.
do we work together?
One of the great things we found in our club, we sponsored one of the students and he wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. And RILA was one of the drop-down items for his leadership activities.
Cool. Now, as I remember, Pat, you're from Alamogordo?
Yes.
Okay, Alamogordo sends more kids to RILA than about anybody.
Well, we work real hard at that and we pay our little bit for what we can do. But then when we find that we need more people, at our meeting, people raise their hands and it takes us about 10 minutes to get the extra funds to send the students.
Awesome.
It
I
is
was-
amazing.
Jesse, I was very lucky to be a RILA counselor one year. And it was the most rewarding time. I had a whole week up in the mountains, having breakfast with the other counselors, and then sharing all of the fun things that we did and taught, and all of the speakers that came in from all over the state to give these kids leadership skills. They loved it. I loved it. It was great. I would suggest everyone at least try 1 week out of the whole year to be a RILA counselor, because it is really rewarding and you learn a lot from all these kids from all over.
You really do.
Their phones worked, mine didn't.
Well, I know that's a dilemma.
I know.
It's almost good that their phones don't work.
Mine didn't work. Theirs worked.
Well,
I don't know how they managed that.
It's a challenge managing the distractions of phones with teenagers. So
Jesse,
what he's referring to is it's up on the edge of the mountains where you maybe get cell coverage. Well, if you go send under that lamppost,
Right?
if you're lucky, you may get a connection.
Right.
Sonny, did you have something?
Jesse, Peg had something she wanted to
Oh,
say.
Peg, sorry.
When you were talking about the types of students that we send to RILA, so I've been a counselor the last 2 years. We need to work on our diversity. And, you know, I mentioned that a lot of those kids have also gone to Boys State, Girls State, whatever. We need to really try to make the opportunity available to kids who aren't getting those other opportunities. And I guess since Rotarians pay for this, I try to work with the school and ask them to find kids who could benefit from it, but who don't have the means to go to a camp on their own, since we're going to pay for it. But just my observation is we need to work much more at getting more of a variety of students there.
Thank you, Peg. That's a perfect.
So I'm watching my time too. So I'm going to move on. We've got a couple more things to cover here. Rotary Fellowships. Got 2 more topics. If we look at our materials here, go down a couple of pages, we come to fellowships. Is anybody here involved in a fellowship? So I'm going to briefly talk about it. We've got about 3 or 4 people I know in the El Paso area that are involved in them. They're These are programs of Rotary, but much looser. These are kind of loose confederations or associations of people that have an interest. I'll give an example. One of our members is an avid RV camper. There is an RV camper association, and he probably takes 5 trips a year going out to go camping and have a good time with Rotarians somewhere in the country. We also have another Rotarian in our club who's in the golf association. And the golf association, their thing is they want one big tournament a year, and it's for Rotarians worldwide. But look at all of these. Is there something in there that interests you? So my time is moving along, so I'm going to just leave you with that thought. Look at those if you love fishing. Now, we can't all love beer, so sorry about that. But there's a wine association, tennis, skiing, jazz, just about anything you're interested in. You could find Rotarians to go share it with. Many of these will hold events.
Jesse?
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm a member of the Scouting Fellowship, and they have a quarterly newsletter. I've never really attended anything or been involved in it, but it tells me what all the Rotary clubs around the country that sponsor a Cub Scout pack or a Boy Scout BSA troop, it tells me what they're doing and how they're involved with their club. So it gives me ideas of things, because I'm a big scouting supporter, and it gives me ideas of what my club could possibly do to support scouting. So I like that.
So that's great. So these are all kind of self-organized things. So like the golf one has one event a year. Recreational vehicles has them every month. And yours that you talk about scouting isn't about events, but about sharing ideas and practices. So that's good. If you have an interest, look for other people in Rotary that may share your interest. There's another thing called a Rotarian Action Group. There's a list of them here. You can go on the Rotary site and find the complete list. Alzheimer's, blood, child slavery. How are these different? How are these different than the previous list?
There are more projects to work on versus the other ones were more for fun.
Right. So the other was social. This has a mission. Is anybody a part of any of these?
I am.
Yep.
I'm part of the water and
Anybody
sanitation.
else? Okay, go ahead, Dan. I thought we might have some others.
I'm part of the water and sanitation. I honestly believe that our next set of wars over the world are going to be about water, not about oil.
And what do you do in the
And I
action
think
group?
that is you get a newsletter, regular newsletter. They keep you up on things that are happening, give you opportunities to serve, and give me information then to pass on.
So they do have projects that you participate in?
Yes, they do. I haven't been able to go to the international ones, but it is, it's right along with peace. It's one of those major things that address where Rotary is.
Cool. Are other people involved in these? I think, Sunny, you told me you were involved in one, right?
I'm in water and sanitation, and we have several people in our district who are in the Peace Action Group, including Yale Jones. Bob Barnard, you too?
Yeah, I'm in peace.
Okay, great. So these are, all of what we've been talking about are the structured programs of Rotary. So they're things outside of our clubs that we can get involved in, and they have different structures. Fellowships are kind of loosely structured, but most of the others are structured and managed by the district or by an international group, but all opportunities for us. And I'm watching my time. I'm down to 1 minute. So back to you, Kathy.
All right. Hey, thanks so much then. Thanks so much, Jesse. That was a great presentation. And it's really, I shouldn't be amazed, but I am at just the different things that we can get involved in as Rotarians. And I don't think there's a single passion or interest that any of us might have that is not possible through Rotary. And so before I turn it over to Jesse, to Jeff, I would like to share everyone's contact information, email addresses and phone numbers. And if you do not want to be a part of that exchange, let me know and I will remove your name from our spreadsheet. But anyway, Jesse, thanks so much. That was a great presentation. Appreciate that, sir.
Good job. Good job.
All right. Hey, any other last minute comments, or I'm not going to ask for questions for Jesse so we don't get into Jeff's, but anyway, good job. Thank you. Okay.
Just to
Jesse,
mention real fast, for everybody that has a Facebook page, please like and share the district homepage. We already have a post for today's session, so hopefully we can create awareness among our district about our Rotaracts that we're meeting to learn, and that we can encourage more people to be part of this training. So please like and share. Thank you.
Oh, well said, Arturo. Thank you. Somebody else said, Sunny, was that you that had something else?
No, I was just pointing out that Arturo had his hand up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, Mr. District Trainer.
All right. Well, we're gonna make a significant shift from Rotary Opportunities, which are kind of external opportunities, to leadership opportunities. And for those of you who took part 1 recently, there's a section in there on leadership where we kind of analyze different leadership styles and how each style can work in a Rotary Club environment. Some may be easier than others, but part of the diversity, part of the strength of Rotary is in its diversity, and we all have different styles and approaches to doing things. And we're gonna pick up on that, looking at effective leadership strategies. So let me go ahead and share my screen quick. There were a number of you that registered late. I hope you all got participant guides to take notes in. You may not have had time to print them, but hopefully you can use them as kind of a guide. So I'm going to scroll down to our second session, effective leadership strategies. So first, again, some of you may be new to the Rotary Leadership Institute. I think some of you may be taking part 2 first. Under the title, there's kind of a short, but I think very impactful statement that kind of describes what this particular module is going to focus on. And as a facilitator, I always look at that to remind myself, what is it we really want to cover in this module? So as I further my Rotary journey, I will continue to examine my own leadership style, engage in more complex and skillful use of my leadership skills, and seize opportunities to lead. So this is a nice segue from what we did in part 1, because part 1 was kind of almost like a self-assessment of leadership. And this is more, how do we apply that? And we're gonna do kind of a group exercise on this in a few minutes to kind of dig deep into this. And I want to try to get as much participation as possible. So I'm going to shift over to a little Word file that we're going to capture. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Okay. So to me, this is this breaks down into 2 fundamental questions for each of us to consider. And given the participant list, we've got a number of incoming presidents. We've got current presidents. We have past presidents. We have people who are leaders, but may not be serving in a management role yet. I think that was one of the things we uncovered in part one, is that you don't have to be a member of a club board to be a leader in a club. So in many ways, we're all leaders. So to me, it was two questions. What will you need leadership in Rotary for? Whether you're a committee chair or a club president or a member who wants to seize those opportunities, what will you need? Can someone mute, please? What will you need leadership in Rotary for? And again, not necessarily based on role. Can someone mute, please? I may have to mute everyone. I don't want to do that.
Jesse, I can't tell who, or sorry, Jeff, I can't tell who it might be, but there we go.
Okay. So we're going to think about, what are we going to be using leadership for? So we're going to come up with a number of things in our clubs where leadership is important. And then the second one gets to part of what's in the title, which is strategies. And for me, strategies answer how questions. How are we going to accomplish what we need using our leadership and our style of leadership? Does that make sense? So for each item we come up with where it's important that we have leadership, how are we going to do this? And as we probably will uncover, there are a variety of strategies that I would say work really well, and there's some strategies that may not work so well, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to look at both. So for those of you who are thinking about your club and kind of what it's trying to accomplish, what will you or what would someone need leadership in Rotary for? What is it where we need effective leadership to accomplish something? What would one of those be?
To do a service project.
Okay, so let's start with that. So think about the makeup of your club. We want to do a service project. Who are the people in the club that are going to have important leadership roles in getting a service project accomplished? Not everyone, but who are like key people in the club that will make this happen? And I'm just going to list them in parentheses after this.
People in that industry.
So like subject matter experts or people that are very familiar with whatever
Right.
we're going to be doing.
So if you're trying to do a food project, find the people with food bank.
Yep. Who else?
Whoever's the champion for that project. Usually we do a project because someone suggests it.
Okay, so that's interesting. So first of all, I agree with that. But how do we know who the champions are? Or how are they self-identified?
They often volunteer or bring up make a suggestion or say we should do that or something.
And usually they have some kind of vested interest.
Maybe.
I mean, I've seen instances where someone recommended something and the club said, that's a great idea. And then that person really never got involved after that. So it's nice for them to have some stake, because then if they're going to be a champion, they can kind of be a champion throughout the life of that service project, as opposed to just, coming up with an idea is great. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a champion yet, but yeah. Okay. Who else?
Someone who's done some research and it'll benefit the community.
So if you think about the makeup of a club, what person or group tends to lead that research on what the community needs?
Community service.
Right. Or you may have it called a service projects committee or some group that does that. Anyone else?
The treasurer, because they have the funds.
They are a leader by definition then, aren't they?
Yes.
Yep.
And also public image, because they're the ones that are going to be sharing the message.
Yep. And who else?
Community partners.
Excellent. And it's nice if they take a lead too. I mean, it's great for them to participate, but it's also great if they kind of step up and help, you know, with the public image and things like that. I'm going to also add the club president. In some cases, they may have to take on a pretty active role. In other cases, others do, but I would include them as well. Okay, big list, right? And that makes sense because service projects, by their very nature, involve a lot of different people. It better not just be one person in the club that's kind of doing all the work. So now let's think about leadership strategies. So again, this is the how. So if we want to do a service project and we are one of these people that we just identified, how do we use our natural leadership skills and ability to make this happen? What is it going to take? And I hope the question makes sense. If it doesn't, I'll kind of add a little bit.
I think the
You
first
need
thing
to
you'd
bring
have to
some
do is
enthus.
Sorry, go ahead.
first thing you'd have to do as the president is see, you know, who's really going to be in charge of this and what do they need.
And what they need. So yeah, that would be club president or maybe the service projects committee chair. Someone is going to have to determine who the people are and what they're going to be doing, right? So that's really not necessarily a style, but it's certainly something that leaders in the club are going to have to work through with the membership. Who's going to be doing this, right? And make sure that you've got someone that's in charge, that we're not just all doing great things, but there's someone that's really overseeing it and working with the treasurer on the financial part and the public image on the public image part. So yes, that would be one. What would be another one?
Jeff, where would you put the community survey?
So that's, again, that's something that's part of doing the project. We have to conduct the survey. Again, that's really not dependent on leadership style. So you can be an assertive leader and we need to do a survey. You can be a servant leader and you need to do the survey. So that still is a how. It's not necessarily how related to leadership style. So yes, that's part of the strategy. We need to conduct a survey. What about the personal attributes of the people who are in leadership? How are they going to use those natural attributes to help move this along?
I think one thing I would see is personal contact. A leadership style is to contact individuals in the club and tell them how much they're needed, how much you'd appreciate them. My point is not a blanket invitation to the club, but focused invitation to get people involved.
Okay.
I think that is a leadership style because you're letting them know that's going to be the entire club, not just you out in front of it. You're kind of supporting them, but you're delegating it to the people that actually want to do it. So I think it's a leadership style myself.
Right. But that's so if I'm in a position where I want the club to work on a service project, I may need to make that personal contact. Was that Jesse that mentioned that? Yeah.
Yes.
So I may need to make that personal contact to get interest, buy-in, get their commitment. And right now, we're not having a lot of personal contact because we're having Zoom meetings, right? So in some ways, that personal contact becomes a little bit more challenging because I'm not like wrapping my arms around you and saying, hey, how's it going? How's the family and all of that? And oh, by the way, we've got a project coming up. We'd love to have your interest, support, whatever it happens to be. So that's a challenge in and of itself, just given the nature that we're not necessarily meeting in person these days. So I would say not only is personal contact important for service projects, but much of what we want to get accomplished in our clubs, if we're in leadership positions, personal contact is really important. What else?
Jeff, I think there's a role for articulating vision, inspiring people with what's possible out of this project.
Yep. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. So who in the club is in the best position to articulate vision? Not the only one, but who's in the best position in the club to articulate a vision?
The president.
Do we agree? Not the only one.
Not the only one, but yeah.
They had an entire year, and many of you are presidents-elect. So you're in that year where you're thinking about stuff like this. What is it we're trying to be? You know, what is our vision going forward? So if you're in a position to articulate the vision and demonstrate that these service projects are part of that vision, that's an important reinforcing message as well, right?
Right.
Any questions or comments about that? That's great. And I'm gonna hit the return because there's at least one more that's really important. And if I don't hear it, I will volunteer it myself. Any other thoughts or ideas on this? Okay, so I'm gonna add one. So I'm just saying achieve consensus or establish a coalition. Make sure that there's general membership buy-in. And when we go back to the participant guide, they talk a little bit about that, and they say something in there that I totally agree with, which is consensus or establishing a coalition is not compromising. If there are people in the club who are totally against this, for whatever reason, we need to work through that. We don't want to have like, well, a majority thought this was a great idea, and the 10% thought this was lousy, but so we're going to go ahead. We want 100% at least acceptance, willingness. They don't have to be passionate, but that's where that personal contact is really important. If you in a leadership role discover that there are people that are not interested in this and are against it, we kind of need to resolve that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So like, how would you address to that issue? Like if you have like the majority of your group, of your club wanted to do something and there's like a few that are not really like into it and probably against it. So how would you address that?
So does anyone else on the RLI want to answer that first? Because I'm sure there are many with ideas.
We had a similar situation, Jeff.
Yeah.
For one of the projects, and we had an event, and some of our club members didn't want to do it, and that stopped the club from doing it 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
So last year we did it, and it was a success. So
what happened? Why was it a success this last time?
Well, we still had the people a little bit against it, but we worked. The ones that were for it, which were very few, we worked as hard as we could. We got the partnerships, and it was a great event. And thanks to that, we got a lot of scholarships for students. So I think now in the future, people are going to have more buy-in.
Well, that's okay. So that's great, but somehow you got that first one going, and thankfully it was successful. And those people that, let's say, were not for it will now be more for it because they've seen it in action, right?
Correct.
So that's great going forward, but sometimes that first one is difficult. So any other any other thoughts on how to get around or how to get through this? Because there are a few, but again, every situation is different.
I think I would just take the time and talk to them and see why they're against it, or if they had another choice, or if they could live if we actually went forward with it, even though they're not in favor of it.
Okay, that's great, Pat. Thank you. I'm hearing feedback again. If someone can mute, I'm not sure who it is.
I'm
Meredith?
trying to talk.
Oh,
Okay. Go ahead.
I think she muted herself, Meredith.
Okay, I'm sorry, Meredith.
Meredith, send us a chat, okay, and we'll answer your question
Yeah,
that way.
I'm trying to talk.
Go ahead.
I'm saying at the same time.
Go ahead.
Never mind.
Don't get frustrated. Hang in there. We're with you. Send us a chat, okay, and by question by chat.
Yeah. So going back to Pat's suggestion, I think that's a big part of it, is that personal contact. And at least for myself, instead of starting it by saying, hey, we really need your buy-in, I would start it with, let's talk about what your reservations are. Let me make sure I understand what it is that you're having an issue with. In some cases, I may say, you know what, you're absolutely right. Those are reasonable reservations. Let's see if we can work through them, as opposed to saying, well, you know, thank you for your input. But that personal touch is really important. The one thing I would not want to do is say, well, I've heard your reservations. I'll tell you what, if we give a green light to your project or what you want to do, give us a green light on what we want to do. Because again, that's compromise, and it just doesn't work. We really do want everyone to say, you know what, I've expressed my reservations. What I've expressed has been heard by the leadership, so they listen to me, and I'm okay with this going forward as a result. That would be like the floor. I can live with this, and I would, if I'm in a leadership role, I would say, you know, I need to know, are we all at least in agreement? You don't have to love it, and if the answer is no, then we've got more work to do. But that's why I think even in the participant guide it says compromise just is not an effective leadership strategy, whether it's a Rotary Club or anywhere else. So that's
I think appealing to the nobler motive, you know, what is the end goal and what is the benefit, so that they can see that part, even though there might not, as you said, you know, have a total buy-in, they see that the end goal is good for the cause.
Right. Someone else?
Yes, I've got it. It's Meredith.
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's important as the leader of a project or a movement or a committee or an idea to consider the makeup of the membership. There are people who do not want to be involved hands-on, but will write a check, or maybe they'll donate, or maybe they'll drive. And so to plan different kinds of roles for all the members of the club to be involved. I want you to be involved with this project. Here's some different ways you could be involved. Do any of them sound interesting to you?
Yep, that's great. Thank you. Excellent. So look at all those different things to consider for a service project. And there's probably more. But for those of you, again, who are incoming presidents, just things to think about. You don't just wake up one day and say, well, I think we ought to do a service project, and I'll mention it at the next club meeting, and off we go. There's a lot to consider if you want to go forward. And again, regardless of your role, service projects chair, the project champion, there's a lot to consider. And what we want to do is do the practical things like conduct the survey, determine who's going to be in charge. Those are kind of the practical considerations. We also want to utilize our leadership strengths. So if you go back to what we discussed in part one, those different styles, those different styles are going to affect how some of these are done. Like, how's that personal contact going to work? What's going to be appealing? How am I going to get the membership to trust me if I'm in a leadership role, so that when we're having those discussions, they're frank, open, and honest, as opposed to kind of guarded and things like that. So you kind of get the gist, right? Service project, here's all the things we need to consider and how they're going to get done. What's another?
Jeff, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, in talking about styles and leadership, if you're going to commit to a consensus process, then you've got to realize that you can't rush it and you can't jump ahead. You've got to allow it to come to that sense of consensus before you move forward with your project. In most cases, that the consensus process itself needs to be honored. And if your leadership style is going to be using that model, then you need to realize that it means honoring that for everybody that has a differing opinion, to the point to where they can get to that place where they can say, okay, I may not agree, but I can support this and I'm willing to allow it to move forward.
Yes, agreed, totally agree. Any other input on this? And what you'll find is a lot of what you captured here will be similar for other things that leaders need to do in Rotary clubs, not just doing a service project. But let's do one more. What's something else that needs to be accomplished in the club? Let me go up to my first question. That we need leadership to focus on, other than doing a service project. What's another thing that we need leaders to lead in Rotary?
Building membership.
So if it's okay, I'll put in parentheses recruitment and retention.
Yep.
Recognizing that we've got both to address. Recruitment and retention. Okay. So again, we may find that some of these are similar. Think about, let's do this first. Who are the leaders in the club, the natural leaders who are likely going to be involved in this?
Hopefully your chairman of the membership committee is the leader in that, because they've expressed an interest in it.
We would certainly hope, right? Who else?
President of the club.
I'm sorry?
President of the club.
Yep.
All the club members.
Okay, so before we go forward, let's talk about that. We always, I don't know about you all, but we always hear, you know, all club members are involved in membership. So you may have a membership committee, but in reality, everyone who's a member of the club is involved in one way or another membership. Do we generally agree on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about in a leadership role?
I'd say it's not necessarily the chair of the membership committee. It's whoever shows up all the time and brings guests. If you don't bring new people in to sample Rotary, how are you going to get them to join?
Right. So all I did, and just given how we've been discussing it, I just put in here ideally, because some club members are going to be very active in recruiting and some may not. All of them have the potential, right? And that's what we would like to see, but if it's not everyone, it's going to be the ones that are either inherently passionate about it or they just happen to know a lot of people and want them to come. But I guess the question for us in this particular module is following leadership and bringing people to a club to potentially join is great. But it's not necessarily it doesn't mean they're a leader unless they step up at the club level and say, hey, everyone, boy, we really have some opportunities with this group over here to recruit some folks. Maybe we should go out and talk with them about what Rotary is and what it's done for our lives, things like that. So all we're trying to say here is we want all club members involved. We may not say that they're all leaders in this, but they certainly should be involved in this at a minimum. Does that make sense? So it's doing something is great. Doesn't mean that every club member is a leader in membership recruitment and retention. Again, that would be ideal. And in fact, if I were club president again, I would think about that. It's like, okay, so how did we do on membership the last time? And how can I get more of the members, not just doing things that the membership committee is saying we should do, but really stepping up and serving in leadership to help this, that we're all doing this together. So a lot of people involved in membership. And again, that's what we would expect. It's all of our responsibilities. What are some of those key strategies on how we're going to get this accomplished? Again, understanding that we've got different styles. How do we do this, especially if we're in leadership roles?
Always be the role model of what you want other people to do.
So what would that look like? What would that look like in membership?
Lead by example.
Right. What would that look like?
You invite a lot of people to Rotary meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So so as an example, and I don't know if we have any membership chairs on the call, but if you are fortunate enough to be a membership chair, it would be reinforcing to the membership that you're doing what you're asking the members to do. Otherwise, it may be harder to get that buy-in when you say, boy, we really want to try to get another 6 or 7 people to the next couple months. And the chair of the membership committee, that person has not been doing that. It makes it a little bit harder to get that buy-in that we need, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. What else?
Jeff, I think you have to have multiple models that are working. So you have to have your regular club that meets every week and everybody comes to and pays the full load, and you have to have satellite clubs. You have to have maybe what's going to come out of this pandemic is we're going to have Zoom clubs that are solely Zoom and have actually a minimum cost to members. Because I think cost is a big impediment to membership in many clubs.
Okay, so that, I'm just going to say that's profound. And I'm thinking about, and I've got a visual in my mind. I don't have it that I can easily show you, but the most recent Rotary strategic plan has 4 pillars. I think that's what they're called, right, Sunny?
Priorities.
Priorities. And the 4th one, the one that's furthest to the right, if you go to the Rotary page, I'm thinking visually, it's the furthest to right, talks about agility, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Adapting and innovating.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what this is, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly.
So if you're in a leadership role, you need to be thinking in a flexible, adapting, agile way, more so than the membership. Membership may be in their comfort zone, although right now there is no comfort zone, but they are who they are. But if you're a leader, you need to be thinking, adjust. What else? And that may not be your natural style, but in a leadership role, you need to be kind of forcing yourself to think beyond your own comfort zone and look at those multiple models and try things, right? That's what the value of piloting things are. Let's see if this works. We don't know. But I think that's a really important point for a lot of this, especially now. We have to, you know, I think Rotary is reinforcing to all of us that we need to innovate, be more agile, flexible. We're not a mold anymore, although we really never were a mold, but I think we felt like we were. But the bottom line is no mold. They're giving us as much flexibility as they basically can do, with the one caveat that we're still Rotary clubs. We're not something else. So yes, we need to consider multiple models, especially if we're struggling with membership, right? Yeah.
I'm going to add it. Kind of another thought related to multiple models is for the leaders to keep in mind that people come to Rotary and stay in Rotary for many different reasons. For some, it's a social reason. For some, it's the meeting, the speaker. For some, it's the service. It's hands-on, it's giving. And we have to realize we got a lot of motives.
Yep. That's right. We're not monolithic, right? We talked in part one about those member surveys and really understanding the membership and try to recognize that there's diversity in our membership, which is a strength. Not everyone joins for the same reason. Not everyone stays for the same reason. So again, I would say that's a really important attribute of a leader, is to do those initial assessments, understand the membership.
Jeff, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just to see if anybody, like, can I see a show of hands who's familiar with the Anytown video from Rotary? I don't know if y'all have seen it. No? And that's a great description of where Rotary is moving forward. So let me go ahead and put it in the chat if that's okay, Jeff.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We could have come up with more examples, obviously, but hopefully we get the gist of this, which is whatever it is we're trying to accomplish, before just diving in, let's figure out how we want to get from point A to point B and how our own personal style will help us get there, because that's part of understanding this. I can't be anyone other than myself. So for my style, there are certain things that I was able to do successfully with the membership, and there were certain things that I tried that didn't work, and that's fine. I was discovery. But I did have to understand what I could personally do. Other people who would have served in the same role that I was serving in, who have a very different style, probably would have tried to get those same things done differently, right? Like those personal relationships. It might have looked a little bit different. One thing I wanted to touch on before we close this session is that we are dealing with a very difficult time right now in Rotary. Not being able to meet in person has been a real challenge. So those of you who are current presidents and those of you who are incoming presidents, you have a circumstance that you had nothing to do with, that as a leader you're going to need to deal with, or you are dealing with it now. And that also will kind of, it'll capitalize on your own strengths. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, how are we going to manage these meetings going forward? How are we going to keep the members engaged? All the things we've talked about in COVID world, there's that agility again. It's not going to look the same. And we need to understand that. And I think part of this notion about effective leadership strategies is that every leader is going to be tested at least once. You're not just going to float through your leadership role. There's going to be a time when you're going to tense up a little bit, and it may be something that you were not thinking was going to happen. And you need to be aware of that and kind of figure out how you're going to work through that situation, hopefully with others, But I guess what I was trying to convey is that think about those effective leadership strategies in times of challenge, because that's where it becomes really important. When things are just floating along, doing well, the leaders are going along. They're not really being tested, but pretty much guaranteed over the course of a 12-month Rotary year, every one of us in leadership roles will be tested. And it's just important to, have a group of people you can talk to and get ideas and all that. But I think a lot of these effective leadership strategies are not just when things are going, hunky-dory. In fact, in many ways, it's when things are challenging.
Jeff, can I mention something?
Yeah.
In our club, and I'm pretty new in Rotary, I've only been here for 4 years, we created a past president council. I don't know if other clubs have it, and that's kind of like an advisory board that can support you. And also there's a lot of resources. The district, we're here for you. If you need to talk to somebody, there's a lot of people that would love to help you. So I just want to share that because for me, it was very helpful. When we run into challenges, I ask the past presidents, like, what would you do in this situation?
Yes.
And then you take the decision. You're the president, but there's a lot of resources that are here for you.
We are not in this alone, my friends. Any other comments or questions?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Yes, it's Meredith with no picture.
Go ahead.
Whether you're heading a project, heading a club, heading a committee, whatever, very important to have a clear vision of what you want. And you are impelled by that vision, and therefore you propel other people to share the vision. Whatever your style, Jeff.
Totally agree.
That's it.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Nicely put, Meredith. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Jeff, I just would like to say and I'm glad Pat has been participating in Pat Devine, our president-elect, has been participating in the sessions, and our current club president was hoping to be here today, but she got called into work. But I think about the Alamogordo Club that's really been, outside of the El Paso, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, huge, Las Cruces areas. It's been a very strong club. We are down more than a third of our members, and we used to be known as the Old Men's Club, and quite a few of our old men have passed away in these past few months or resigned, and so I am really concerned. I just know that our club is going to have a totally different look when we come back together, and I just again am thankful for Pat and the other presidents-elect that are here, and I'm thankful for this training because I think it's a good eye-opener and a good foundation for us to say, okay, we're not in this alone, and we have each other that we can call on. And so thank you for this session.
Thank you. So if there's no other questions or comments, we'll turn it back to Kathy.
All right. Okay. Sorry to get on my soapbox there then. So folks, we have a 20-minute break. We're going to come back at 9:50. So you've got 2 extra minutes unless there are any other questions or comments, but we'll come back at 9:50 then for Renee Canton's presentation on attracting members, which follows this presentation so well. And that's, we've got 1.2 million members in Rotary, but it stayed 1.2 million for I don't know how many years. So we keep losing folks, and particularly here in the United States. So I look forward to Renee's presentation. Any other comments or questions before we take a 20-minute break?
Just thank you to Jeff and to Jesse.
Yep, awesome.
Great so far. See you in 20, right?
All right, yes, 9:50. We'll be back. Thanks, everybody.